Welcome to the MoneyWise Channel, a place where we speak about inspirational things and how to set up goals. So today we will be speaking about emails that we have received over here, and I actually received one from someone that asked about the difference between sacrifice and suffering. And I thought that was a good one. So we're going to speak about sacrifice and suffering. I think I'll call it sacrifice versus suffering. Yeah, sacrifice versus suffering. Now, first, sacrifice, in my opinion, sacrifice is more on purpose. It's for a higher reason. You're letting go of a possession or moving back or applying space for a reason, for a higher purpose. Far as you really thought this out, it makes sense to you, so you're willing to make that stand for that. That's more of a sacrifice. Letting something go, add space. It's a reason for it. Where suffering is more of a state of confusion, a state of continual hardship, pain, and you really don't know why. There's really, I would say there's not a purpose for the suffering. You really don't. It's not something that you're planning. It's just happening. Where sacrifice is more on purpose and more controlled, where suffering is uncontrolled and you really don't understand what's going on. So let's say sacrifice would be, to me, like, I'm going to work this job for this many weeks, and I might not be able to. I might have to sacrifice going out. I might have to sacrifice hanging out. I might have to sacrifice my time in other places. But I'm willing to add that space. I'm willing to limit those things so I can work the time I need at this job to get done what I need to get done for the bigger purpose. That's more thought out. Where suffering is, you're just going to continue to do what you're doing without thinking about it. But while you're doing that, it's causing you more pain because either bills ain't going to get paid or something's going to happen. Or let's use, you're in college. I'm going to sacrifice and study. I'm going to study my stuff to make sure I'm ready for my test here in a couple weeks. So you can't hang out. You can't go to the club. You can't do all these other things, be on the game, whatever it may be. You might even take shorter hours at work to study. So you sacrifice those things in that space where you can suffer and do all those things. It looks like you're having fun because you're going out, you're on the game, you're just having a great time, whatever that may be in that point in time. But in all reality, you're suffering because you still got to take that test and you haven't studied. So you have put yourself in the worst position. So that's the suffering. So it gets kind of twisted because sacrifice, you can feel it more sometimes physically or your situation because you're actually letting something go in that space, where suffering is actually worse, but it might feel better because in the moment you don't really feel like you're letting anything go because you're doing everything and it seems so fun. But in reality, you're driving yourself in the worst situation. You're like ruining yourself on top. It's like layers of crap. So once you're really ready to do right and even maybe think about sacrificing, you're so deep under that even when you fight for it, you got 7 layers of hell. So once you sacrifice and get through the first layer, you still got 6 more, which in that time period will make you not want to try because it was so hard to get through the first and to the second. So you don't even want to see 5 more layers of hell. But these layers you put there, that's the problem. You put them there. So now you're in a state of suffering where you're really being hurt continual by the things you did. Now you're living in hardship. And the problem about this too is when you suffer, it's not just you. You have to understand you also make other people suffer. Because when you sacrifice and you set yourself up for the righteous situation that you're doing, like I said, if it's a test, a job, or whatever it may be, a championship, whatever you need to do, you sacrifice time to become better in that situation, to go after it. When you fall back and don't sacrifice and you just suffer, you set up all these levels of pain, and you add hardship to everybody around you, because those people can't be as great as they could have been, because they may have need to see you be great. They may have need your advice. They may have to see you pass the line for they could feel they could do it. It's amazing the pain that we drop on other people because of our suffering. Even, let's say this, somebody may see you suffering and make them feel like they need to suffer too, because they're going to follow the things you did, because you still faking and acting like you're winning. Because they have this thing that fake it till you make it. The problem with that is everybody's doing what you're doing, and what you're doing is wrong, and it's just advancing suffering upon them. When you could just sacrifice, like I said with the test, and then they could act like you're acting, and they would study and they would sacrifice too, and then it would help everybody. Because a lot of this stuff is follow the leader. That's what I mean by suffering. A lot of times we see our parents do stuff, we'll do it. We'll end up, and you ever seen somebody that ends up with a drug problem that their parents had, and you heard them say they wouldn't end up like that, but they still end up like that, because that suffering is more easier, because it's still like they were having fun when they were doing the drugs. The kid remembers seeing them do drugs, so they're like, I'm gonna do it. It seemed like they had a good time, or that's the way they dealt with pain. So they're going to do that, not knowing that they're compounding suffering among them. See, so they need to sacrifice so your children, your nephew, your nieces, your cousins, everybody can see you being successful without all that drama. So sacrifice via suffering. I would say sacrifice, do it on purpose, be in a controlled atmosphere when it comes to the things that you are setting far as your goals, far as what's inspiring you, far as the books you read, far as the shows you watch, far as you really need to make sure that your space is clean and pure, so you can go after the things you want to go after, and you can be present with those emotions and those thoughts. But always remember that logic is more important than emotion. You need to have logic and think things out. Use your brain to think. Use your heart for the emotion, far as the energy to generate behind those thoughts from your brain. Make sure the logic is right. So when you do that, you will be willing to sacrifice, because you'll be willing to set things up like a blueprint for success. Suffering, it feels good in the moment, but it won't work. It's going to end up throwing you off, because you're going to put so much time in that, kicking it, laughing, giggling with all these people. It's going to go well. But as soon as any of them people you having fun with, if you say, let's get serious, you might see something different in them, because they're just there to kick it. You be willing to sacrifice your friends. Be willing to sacrifice time doing other stuff. Be willing to do that. Sometimes you have to sit down and write your life down and look through it and see, what do I need to sacrifice? Good, bad, beautiful, or ugly. But at least think about this. Don't live a life of suffering, of not knowing, being confused, just a state of hardship and pain. Don't do that, because that not only, even if you say, I don't care about my life, I don't care. I've heard some people say, I hate it here, and all this weird stuff that people say now. If that's the case, what about the people you care about? Do you want them to hate it here? Do you want them to continue suffering? Most likely you're going to say no, because most people care about other people more than they do themselves. So in that reality, sacrifice via suffering, I would say sacrifice, because it's more control and more on purpose. And that's my opinion. Stay inspired. Keep going after your goals. And just know plans may change, but goals stay the same. Like and subscribe. I'm going to continue to answer the emails. See you on the next video. Yep.